Good morning, students. Welcome to the new lecture of IR this week. Last week it was just for 1 hour, that too not at its regular time, and this week also, since we have got 1st of January tomorrow, and we did not want either to engage you people or the people who are engaged here. So we are just recording this and we will be putting it on the YouTube. In case of any doubts, please you can comment or you can post that on the Telegram group, and as you know, I shall be positively responding to all your queries. Probably if it is a very brief one, I'll immediately respond, or if it is a bigger one, then in the next one. Okay. And yes, regarding the interview candidates, one of the students, he had asked me a question that, sir, regarding IR, is this IR this week sufficient? My answer is no. You see, in IR this week, we limit our focus to the issues that are important for you to understand from men's perspective. So naturally this will form a part, but apart from that, if you are going through the newspaper, you might have seen that in case of Kosovo there is tension between Kosovo and Serbia. Naturally I shall not be discussing that here, but there can be a question in your interview, particularly those related to PSIR or those who want to go for Indian Foreign Service. So there are many such issues naturally that I will not be covering, but I'll try to cover that in the lecture series that we are planning for interview candidates. And moreover, as I have suggested in our IMP Telegram group, in case you have got any doubts or any suggestions, post that too, either related to GS or related to international relations. Okay, we shall be handling it, we shall be explaining things to you, because you see presently there are a lot many things that are going on, and we need to have a very clear understanding about all these. Okay, moreover, in case of any doubts, you can always. Okay, so we have got some questions. I had not posted that because we had not taken those specific topic, but still I have got 2 questions that we can naturally discuss. And moreover, regarding discussing the questions, as you all know that with respect to mains, it is the questions that are most important. So that is why questions will always be. And regarding these questions, even after I discuss, because now I am going to discuss, you can see them, you can write them, and after that you can upload that to get that evaluated, and later on you can look at the discuss. Okay, so that this is the question, and now I shall be discussing. The first question says that Japan's new national security strategy. I think 2 weeks back I had discussed about Japan's new national security strategy as part of Japan going to double its defense expenditure in 5 years. Okay, and apart from that, it is also going to acquire long range ballistic missiles in order to develop counter strike capability. Okay, so the question says that it is a paradigm shift that can deepen India Japan ties. Okay, so okay, let us read the next part and then we will go to the discuss. How can it strengthen Quad? Okay, so in this question, broadly there are 3 portions. First is Japan's national security strategy, how that can deepen India Japan ties, and third, how it can strengthen Quad. Okay, so now let us go to discussion. So naturally in the introduction we will always go for explaining Japan's new security strategy. For interview candidates, I shall be discussing this in detail because this is very important, because always the questions related to Indo-Pacific that is being asked, and as I had discussed in the last interview class, it was asked from me about free and open Indo-Pacific. So naturally Japan's new security strategy, naturally that will be part of it, and a question can always be. Okay? So new security strategy is talks about reorientation. Because you see, in the post World War era, Japan had got a very, what should I say, defense. It was not actually defensive, it was abjuring war, that Japan will not go for participating in any war. And later on in 1960 it was amended, where it had said that it will have forces just for self defense, and as a result there are JSDF, Japan Self Defense Forces. Okay, and Article 9 of Japanese Constitution, it calls for rejecting any war, and Japan will go for negotiations and diplomacy for resolving any of its disputes or conflicts. So after Shinzo Abe came to power, and there were talks, and he took initiative to reorient Japan's posture, because still Japan was focused away from war. Naturally it will have to be dependent on USA for its security purpose, and we know about how reliable USA can be. So for Japan to emerge as a power in itself, naturally it is economy that has to be complemented with security domain. That was the first part. And next, Japan has got disputes, and which are those islands? You should search for yourself. Okay, disputes both with Russia and China, right? And then because of continuous missiles testing by North Korea, that also presents threat to Japan. Okay, so because of these factors, there has been a talk, and in recent times the need for revising Japanese constitution, there is a 60% population that is in support of that revision. Okay, so it is your duty, because from pre-perspective also this is important, that which are the islands that are disputed between Japan and Russia, and between Japan and China. And in this security strategy, it clearly talks about China being the revisionist power, and it says that both China and Russia, they are threat to global security and peace. And it also underscores about the threats in Indo-Pacific, mainly East Asia. And talking about East Asia means it is underscoring about Taiwan. So once China goes aggressively for Taiwan, there are chances that Japan will feel threatened. So Russia is focusing on Ukraine, and there are chances that China might do the same with Taiwan. So because of all these factors, Japan has gone for reorientation, where what it has done, it has talked about doubling its defense budget by 2027, that is in next 5 years. Okay, second is it will develop counter strike capability, and third is it will get long range missile. Okay, so these are three basic aspects which talks about Japan's reorientation. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं क्वेश्चन का नेक्स्ट पार्ट क्या. फर्स्ट पार्ट एड्रेस्ड, नाउ द नेक्स्ट पार्ट इज It is a paradigm shift that can deepen India-Japan ties. So naturally now we will focus on India-Japan ties. How this will strengthen? So strengthening Indo-Japan ties. How this can? You see, presently India and Japan, we are mainly engaged in economic cooperation, investment. So this will open up a new frontier for cooperation, that is defense manufacturing. डिफेंस मैन्युफैक्चरिंग R&D हो गया, ठीक है ना, बिकॉज इफ यू रिमेंबर US टू amphibious aircrafts, those we were supposed to take from Japan. However, because of these restrictions, we could not take it. Second, it will be diversify India's defense cooperation. Presently, we know that after from Russia, we have diversified towards USA, Israel, France. Naturally, Japan can be a new dome. Okay. Then third will be strengthen security architecture in Indo-Pacific. Right? Right? And the fourth will be reduce dependence on USA, or we can also term about extra regional powers. So these are various ways in which it can strengthen India-Japan ties. Now next, what is the next part? The next part says about how can it strengthen Quad. So naturally the points will be roughly the same, but still, since it is a part of the question, we have to answer it. Strengthening Quad. You see, in case of Quad, we have seen that USA rank 1, India rank 4th in terms of military capability. Okay. Now the point is, previously Australia was not that much strong because of its economic dependence on China as well as limitations of its own military capability. But now when Australia has become part of AUKUS, after that only Japan that has been termed as the weakest link. So naturally this will strengthen Japan's position vis-a-vis China. So all those mutual differences that are weak or mutual suspicions that are weak, that are within Quad, that can be addressed. Okay. So what we can write? After AUKUS, this will strengthen Japan's position vis-a-vis China, right? Then it will be second, help, naturally it will help in balancing. You see, we do not have to write restricting with respect to China because that is not our aim. The stated aim is that China's rise is peaceful. It means that nations are not against China's rise, but it's just that the rise should be peaceful. ठीक है, तो आगे वही है, help in balancing against China. Okay, and then third, deepen security cooperation among Quad nation, and fourth, this will give confidence to ASEAN against Chinese belligerence. ठीक है, तो ये आपका हो गया क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 का आंसर. ठीक है, नाउ लेट अस गो टू क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 क्या कहता है? And yes, today I am discussing it quite fastly because we have got to discuss Palestine, Israel. Because in Israel a new government has come, and because of what the government is saying, what can be the challenge? And we know that India, Israel, that can, I mean Israel, Palestine, that can take a lot of time. ठीक है, तो अब देखते हैं क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 says that what are the challenges in India Myanmar relations? You will say कि सर रिसेंटली तो बताया नहीं है, तो आई थिंक नहीं, इंडिया म्यांमार रिसेंटली नहीं बताया, तो थोड़ा देख लेंगे. ठीक है ना, बिकॉज जो चीजें हुई हैं एट इन द यूएनएससी रिसेंटली, देयर वाज अ वोट अगेंस्ट म्यांमार, बट इंडिया, चाइना एंड रशिया, ऑल these three they have abstained. Okay, and in that context I have given this question. Challenges in India Myanmar relations suggest a way for India to remain engaged in Myanmar crisis. So first we will discuss about the challenges, and then we will talk about Myanmar crisis briefly in 2 lines, and then we will suggest a way for India to remain engaged. ठीक है, तो अब देखते हैं क्वेश्चन. ठीक है, तो सबसे पहले हमें देखना है इंट्रो. In case of intro, what we can write? We can always write about Myanmar as India's land bridge to ASEAN and gateway to Southeast Asia. We can write something like Myanmar holds importance in India's geopolitical view as land bridge to the ASEAN and gateway to the Southeast Asia. और या फिर अगर आपको लग रहा है कि ठीक है, सीधे का सीधा जियोपॉलिटिक्स, टॉकिंग डायरेक्टली अबाउट जियोपॉलिटिक्स, दैट इज नॉट वेरी गुड, देन वी कैन राइट समथिंग लाइक दैट इंडिया एंड म्यांमार शेयर deep cultural and ethnic ties, and in India's geopolitical vision, Myanmar is land bridge to ASEAN and gateway to Southeast Asia. ठीक है, अब देखिए ये इंट्रो हो गया. देन वी विल डायरेक्टली टॉक अबाउट चैलेंज. वी विल गिव अ स्मॉल सब हेडिंग एंड देन वी विल डायरेक्टली गो टू चैलेंजेस. अब चैलेंजेस क्या क्या है? तो यू सी, चैलेंजेस में वी विल सेग्रीगेट. वन इज बाउंड्री इशू, राइट. सेकेंड इज insurgency, third is refugee crisis, fourth is military coup, and fifth is increasing Chinese engagements. ठीक है ना, या फिर आफ्टर बाउंड्री इश्यू यू कैन ऑल्सो मेंशन दिस एज सेकंड वन. ठीक है ना, उसके आगे बाकी सारी चीजें. रिगार्डिंग बाउंड्री इशू वी नो दैट वी शेयर an open border with 16 kilometer of free movement regime. Insurgency groups like NSCNK operate with impunity from across the border, posing threat to life and security of Indian civilians as well as defense forces. Then refugee crisis after military coup. Okay, then what we will write? First military coup and then we will go for refugee crisis, because first we will refer about military coup, that sudden change in regime or toppling of democratic regime that has presented a challenge because of India's own democratic credentials and its continuous support for democracy. Okay, and then we will go for refugee crisis, that because of military coup and persecution of peoples and activists, there has been an influx of refugees to the smaller northeastern states like Mizoram. ठीक है ना? और बाकी आपका चाइनीज एंगेजमेंट्स यू कैन ऑलवेज मेंशन अबाउट चाइना म्यांमार इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर एंड क्याओक्यू. ठीक है, डीप सी वाटर पूल. ठीक है, तो ये है चैलेंजेस. एंड देन कम्स म्यांमार. एक मिनट फिर से क्वेश्चन को देखते हैं. क्वेश्चन क्या कह रहा है? इंडिया टू रिमेन एंगेज्ड इन म्यांमार क्राइसिस. तो नेचुरली सबसे पहले हम क्या करेंगे? हम बात करेंगे म्यांमार क्राइसिस. तो व्हाट इज म्यांमार क्राइसिस? म्यांमार क्राइसिस क्या है? म्यांमार क्राइसिस इज अबाउट toppling of democratic regime by the military junta and ongoing protests within Myanmar against the existing regime. Military has also taken a hard-handed approach, resulting in death of civilians, okay, which has also resulted in sanctions from many Western nations. Okay, this becomes Myanmar crisis. Okay, then way for remaining engaged. Before we discuss this, let me give you some of the updates regarding that. You know what has happened is that ASEAN, it has also said that India should not go for engaging Myanmar unilaterally. Rather than that, we should go for, India should go via the route of ASEAN, because ASEAN has also in case of Myanmar presented a 5-point formula about bringing peace and stability to ASEAN, because they know that if they start engaging Myanmar unilaterally, all these nations, be it India, be it USA or any other nation or China, they hold a lot of sway, and in such a case it is Myanmar that will start losing its relevance. Tomorrow there is a crisis in any other nation, it is all these nations, they will take some sort of bilateral or trilateral cooperation. So that is why, and not only to India, even to other nations they have said so, because they want to resolve it through the the ASEAN. And even recently, as I said, that at UNSC there was a voting calling for Myanmar, that re-establish democracy, stop what should I say, violence against civilians. But all three, India, Russia and China, they did not, they abstained from the voting, and they said that external pressure will not be the right way. The right way will be through ASEAN and through negotiations and engagement. ठीक है? So all that we can mention about way for remaining engaged. Naturally हो गया. Institutionally there are two ways. One is BIMSTEC. Okay. BIMSTEC के थ्रू कैसे करना है वो आपको पता ही है. I have already discussed it previously, that whatever humanitarian cooperation is there, it can be through BIMSTEC, that will strengthen the organization. Second is through ASEAN route, by engaging with ASEAN nations, and ASEAN nations have also urged India to not to go unilaterally, but rather use it through ASEAN. Okay. Then third is, it can be backdoor diplomacy. We know that Indian Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra, he was recently there in Myanmar, and so through backdoor diplomacy, through peaceful negotiations, quiet engagement, we can remain engaged. Fourth will be focus on infra projects. Infra projects, something like Rihtadim. One is Rihtadim, then it is the what is its name? India Myanmar Thailand trilateral highway. And third is Kaladan. Multimodal. Okay. So here we can also give an example. Okay. So these are some of the various routes through which we remain engaged, and the focus should be that patient diplomacy should be the way forward, because in case of any rush or hard-handed approach, the scope of Myanmar shifting further closer in Chinese embrace becomes more imminent, and that will pose a geopolitical threat, geopolitical and security threat to India's northeast as well as India's stakes in the Bay of Bengal. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से करके हमें इसे कंक्लूड कर. ओके, so I hope this is clear to you. Now let us go back to the topic, and let me reiterate it yet again, that in case of any doubt, you can write on Telegram, you can comment below, because this is presently being recorded and this will be uploaded on YouTube. Okay. So you see what happened, and that is the first topic of our discussion, and this was supposed to be discussed last week, but unfortunately we did not have something. You see, what happened was that Ukrainian President Zelensky, he made a visit to US. From Ukraine, he went to Poland, and from Poland, in a US Air Force aircraft, he went to US. And there it was not just a meeting with US President Biden, but also he addressed the joint session of US. And there are some things that he said, and which are of significant importance to us. And one of the candidates, he was also talking about the 10-point formula that Zelensky, he had suggested at G20 meeting in Indonesia. So that is mentioned in the material, and that also will be looking at. And you see how one factor is why Zelensky made this visit. Okay, because you see, war has been going on for quite some time. It's been more than 10 years. And this was first ever any abroad visit of US, and about addressing the joint session, and how Russia has said that the way he went, and the way because USA has said that it shall be providing Ukraine with Patriot missiles. I think it is Patriot. I think we have mentioned it, because it is actually missile defense system. Just to say, yes, it is, yes, Patriot missile defense. Right. So missile defense system, and we will be looking at, and yes, Russia has said that this is not the language of peace, and by supporting Ukraine through its weapons, even USA is not interested in peace. Because you see, present situation of Russia. Now I shall be looking at it later on, but let us first discuss what is going on and why it is. You see, we have already discussed multiple times what is going on and why it is. Now let us look at the present. Present scenario is such that there are winters and situation is very hard on the other side of Himalayas across whole of Europe, and we also know that what is happening in case of US. And what, in order to force the Ukrainian government to submit and in order to ensure that the public suffers, what Russia has done is that it has targeted its electricity infrastructure. So if no electricity, it means no hot water, and no hot water or no heating equipment for your homes, and that makes the life very tough for Ukrainian public. And moreover, Russia also knows that this is the time for them to charge ahead, because it is pretty much difficult in such winters for forces to act. And even during the times of Hitler, this is what something that Stalin had done, and it was because of that Siberian winters that Hitler could not march forward, and ultimately he was. So that was one aspect of it. Another aspect is that, you see, recently we saw there were elections in US, and after elections, the lower house, the House of Representatives, now it is being dominated by the Republican Party. Though the domination is in, they have not got a significant majority, but still the domination is there. And for any budget to be passed, it needs to be sanctioned, it needs to be passed by the House of Representatives. And the Republican Party, they are not willing to write a blank check for Ukraine. They all sympathize with you, but they are not willing to write a blank. So in order to put a, what should I say, psychological pressure on them, a moral pressure on them, Zelensky made this visit and he addressed both houses of the Congress, because presently it is the Democrats who are controlling. And moreover, the type of references that Zelensky made, that very soon you will be celebrating Christmas, but Ukrainians, they will have celebrations in under candlelight because there will be no electricity, etc. So the focus of this was mainly the US public, so that to make the US public empathize with Ukrainians, so that some sort of public pressure can also be built on Republicans, so that they go for sanctioning the funds, and that fund is roughly around $50 billion for you. And you see, in case of Europe also or West, this is a very significant hypocrisy, and this has been said time and again. When in Syria people were suffering, you were focused more on terror. When in Iraq people were suffering, when in Libya people were suffering, when in Afghanistan people were suffering, when in Vietnam people were suffering, it did not matter much to you. But when the Christians have started suffering, suddenly Europe is too much. Because for them it was that war that is happening outside Europe. That is perfectly fine, because it was NATO who was directly involved, be it in case of Libya or Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan. But they had not imagined that such a war can descend upon Europe. And moreover, in case of Europe also, there is a tension. Why? Because they do not want that this Ukraine war becomes their own war, because it is not the USA that has got a neighborhood with Russia, but it is the smaller European nation. Okay, and all these Republicans, why they are against not writing a black blank? Because Republicans, they are mainly focused inwards. Since Trump or even prior to Trump, they are talking that we are getting behind China. So the need is for us to invest in our own infrastructure, train our own capability, our own people, and that is why they are not willing to write a blank check for. So if somehow people can put pressure, perhaps Republicans, and you see regarding this budget, I think there won't be much of a challenge because the majority of Republicans is very slim, and unlike in India, there is no anti-defection law, so individuals can vote across the party line. Okay, and moreover, with respect to USA, the point is that initially USA was not willing to send missiles to this Ukraine. And one of the reporters actually asked in that meet between Ukrainian president and US President Biden that initially you did not want to send, but now you are sending. Why? And there was no. And even when it did send the missiles, the point was that it had said to Ukraine that the missile should not cross your own territory. So if Russians are in your territory, then you can target, but you cannot use these missiles to target any Russian assets within Russia. Because if any US missiles, though it was launched by Ukraine, but it falls within the Russian boundaries, naturally that means you are inviting Russia for a war with US, and that will naturally lead to World War III. And now since this missile defense system, though previously also we know that there have been missile defense systems, but the point is that now since Russia, we saw that from Zaporizhia and Kherson, all these regions, Russia has been pushed back. So what now Russia has started doing is that through long range missiles, it has started targeting the infrastructure. So just by targeting the infrastructure, you are incapacitating the enemy. So that is what Russia is doing, and for that purpose, Patriot defense missile system has been sent by the US. There have been previously other missile systems, but unfortunately, they were not. And we will then look at the peace plan, and that peace plan is actually not a peace plan. There is no compromise on the part of Ukraine, because presently Ukraine thinks that it is winning, and when anyone thinks that he or she is winning, that means they are not willing to compromise, and that we will look into what their stance. Okay, so I think I have explained this whole funda, and please write this down, because most of the things that are not in the written in this material. Okay, so as I said, this was his first visit, and he also addressed the joint session of USA Congress. It is on the verge of approving almost $50 billion. This is what I was talking about. And the Republicans, they are not willing to write a blank. They are saying that we will not write a blank check to this Ukraine, because they are more focused inward. Because now they are trying to develop the constituency in the form of laborers, workers, and all. Okay, so might be a hindrance. That is what I said. And Zelensky termed Russia as a terrorist state. And when you use such a term, it means you are not willing to negotiate, because the language of negotiation, the language of diplomacy is very mild. You do not use such a term. And restoration of international legal order is our joint task. And this is how he is trying to mobilize the public opinion against Russia. And yes, regarding this, let me bring it forward and then I will show you. What is the conditions he has put for negotiation? For me as a president, just peace is no compromise as to the sovereignty, freedom and territorial integrity. So two terms, territorial integrity and sovereignty. What is Russia saying? Russia is talking about complete demilitarization. Demilitarization means you will not have any weapons so that you do not become a future threat to me. something that was done with Germany after World War I. And what are they saying? That so demilitarization that will go against sovereignty and territorial integrity, because all these both regions, Donetsk and Luhansk, Russia has declared them as part of Russia. So now if negotiation talks about territorial integrity, it means they will have to return these along with Kherson and Zaporizhia, and go back to 2014. What had happened in 2014? It was Crimea that went back to Russia, annexed Crimea. So when it is talking about sovereignty and territorial integrity, naturally they will talk about Crimea. And Russia under no circumstance would be willing to give back Crimea. And why? I have discussed this in the past with two people, and also on last Sunday with the interview candidate. So that is the reason, and that is why this peace deal seems to be a non-starter. Okay, and then we will go back to the 10-point agenda. And please remember this is for interview candidate. Integrity of my country, the payback for all the damages inflicted. You see, then here comes another issue, that it's not just about sovereignty and it's not just about territorial integrity, but Russia also has to pay back. And it is being said that Ukrainian reconstruction will perhaps cost $1 trillion, and Russia is an economy that is just about $1 trillion. So you want that a nuclear power, a past superpower, should pay you back your money. So naturally Russia will never be willing for that. And the point is, Ukraine now knows that they have got unlimited access to weapons. And on Russia, slowly the sanctions are getting tight. So this becomes the challenge, and that is why when we talk about will this war come to an end, by looking at all these conditions for negotiations, simply it does not seem so. So for interview candidates, you can remember, if you are being asked that he talked about negotiation, so do you think that war will be coming to an end? There you can mention that it is in the global interest that the war comes to an end. However, looking at the conditions that have been put by Zelensky, both Ukrainian president as well as Russian president, because Russian president, he talks about demilitarization. Demilitarization means this will go against the idea of sovereignty, and they are talking about territorial integrity as well as payback for the damages. So both these terms seem to be a non-starter. So it does seem that perhaps the war, it will remain a zone of tension, and it will go on to become a protracted, and the tension across these borders becoming the new norm. Okay, so, and what has Russia said? Russia has said that Zelensky's visit to USA shows that neither Ukraine nor USA wants peace, and it is also accused USA of fighting indirect war against Russia. So as in case of Ukraine, I had put this question, and believe me, at that time I had not seen this. Okay, so when it talks about USA is fighting an indirect war against Russia, so that was also a question, that is this a war between Russia and Ukraine or a war between Russia and the US? So that is what USA has also accused this USA. Then what all has USA done? USA is going to send Patriot defense missile defense system as part of new $1.8 billion package, and apart from that there is humanitarian, financial and security assistance. Roughly $50 billion worth of support has already been given to Ukraine. And you look at this, the language USA is saying that this is defensive, this is not escalatory, which means USA wants Ukraine to fight with Russia on its own behalf, but that war against Russia must not knock at US door. And that is why this language, that it is defensive in nature, it is not escalatory, it is not offensive. Okay, and that will strengthen the air defense significantly. And prior to that also USA had said some HIMARS as well as MLRS, and that has helped Ukraine in tackling a lot many Russian missiles. And this is what I had said, that Russia is targeting Ukraine military and energy infrastructure. So that is why this Patriot defense missile system has been asked by Ukraine. And now let us look at the 10-point peace plan, and it is roughly the same what we discussed in terms of what Zelensky said. What did he say? Radiation and nuclear setting. This is mainly related to, what is the spelling? Zaporizhia. Zepoporizia. It is related to Zaporizhia because that is the nuclear power, and any tension over there, any sort of attack, then perhaps it can be a nuclear catastrophe. So that is the first focus. Second is food security, because Russia and Ukraine, they provide roughly around 33% of global wheat stock. So that is why food security, not only for Ukrainians but also for the world as a whole, which means that Ukraine wants that whatever its wheat is, that should be permitted to be sent. And in fact, after Black Sea Peace Initiative or Black Sea Food Initiative, whatever it was, under that Russia had permitted export of Ukrainian wheat from the across the Black Sea. Okay, then energy security and prisoners and deporters. That whatever the prisoners that Russia has got and whatever the prisoners Ukraine has got, both should be exchanged. Okay? And next, United Nations Charter and Ukraine's territorial integrity. So that is what it is saying, that whatever is going or should go on, that should be as per UN Charter, and Ukraine's territorial integrity, that needs to be ensured, that needs to be maintained, which again means that Russia has to step back. So out of these 10 plans, point is that there is no point that is addressing Russia's concern. So that is another point you can add, that whatever this 10-point peace plan Ukrainian president has suggested, it does talk about all the right moves, but it does not talk about the concerns of Russia, that Ukraine not joining NATO. But then again the question comes that Ukraine is a sovereign nation, it has got a right to make its decision. Then the point is, the world, we do not live in an idealistic world, and any smaller nations, it has to be cognizant of the concerns of the neighboring major power, and that is the reality of geopolitics. Okay, so and next is related to Russian troops and hostilities. And yeah, regarding justice, what does it say? There should be a special tribunal regarding crime of Russian aggression. So it's not just that. Previously we talked about payback, sovereignty and territorial integrity, but it also says that whatever war crimes Russia has committed, there should be a special tribunal for taking decision and punishing the perpetrator. So naturally Russia will not agree to that, because if Russia agrees to that, its troops will be punished under this, and that will lead to disaffection within Russian military. So that is why, and mechanism to compensate for all the damages caused. So another point that we discussed previously. Okay, so then again this point also becomes a non-starter. Immediate protection of environment, prevention of escalation, and confirmation of end of war. So these are the 10 points, and the last is confirmation of end of war. But the point is Russia's concerns related to NATO's membership of Ukraine and NATO's eastward expansion that have not been taken into consideration. So in case of any peace deal, the concerns of both the parties need to be addressed. So neither Ukraine will get demilitarized, nor Russia will pay for the compensation, or perhaps it will not step back. So perhaps the war will go on, it will convert into a protracted war with frequent escalation or mm, frequent firings. Okay, so this is what perhaps that will happen. Okay, so this was related to Ukraine, and what were the reasons? The reason was, yet again, let me help you in recalling. The one was, why was the visit? One was because of Republicans gaining control of lower house. Second is occasion of Christmas. Third is appeal to US public. Okay, and the fourth is naturally get additional. And yes, why Republicans are not in favor? Why? Because first of all, they are focused inward. Second is don't want a blank check to Ukraine. And third and most important is with respect to EU. They want that European nations, they should also provide aid rather than USA fighting on their behalf, and they want that EU should stop piggybacking USA. Something what Donald Trump wants. Okay, so these are the key reasons, and that is why Ukraine made a visit. And how Russia has responded, that we have seen. Okay, and then yes, the news is that Zelensky has also made a call to Indian Prime Minister, and perhaps that was something advice that was given to him by the US. Because in case of Russia, Russia also knows that we are among its key backers, and we have become emerged as key energy market for Russian energy products. And since we are getting the G20 presidency, naturally we would want that somehow the conflict should come to an end, because that will that is something that will be something for us to show off our credentials as a global power or major power. Okay, so these are some of the factors, and actually Zelensky, when he called, he thanked India for all its help and support, and calling out that this is not the time for war. And again he also congratulated for a successful G20 presidency, though Ukraine is not a member of it. Okay, so these were different facts. And now to a very important topic, that is Israel. You see what has happened in Israel. Roughly in last 3 years, Israel has seen 5 elections, because previously Benjamin Netanyahu, he was at the helm, and then there were different parties that tried to gain power, but unfortunately the coalitions, they were not very successful, and that is why there were continuous elections, and it was the fifth election since 2019, as I said. And now out of 120 seats in Israel parliament is called as Knesset. Okay. Now the present alliance, it has got 64 seats. So it is a very comfortable coalition. But the issue is that the members of the coalition, they are even hardliner than the Likud party, LIKUD, that is the party of Benjamin. And you can say Likud is something like BJP हमारे यहाँ, और जो इसके अलायंस में आए हैं लिकड के अभी, you can term them as something like Shiv Sena, but not Shiv Sena of today, but Shiv Sena of something 10 years back, when it was strident, focused on its ideology, irrespective of electoral calculation. So when all these groups, they have come together, and most of the groups, what they talk about is annexation of West Bank, and some of them are homophobic and even not in favor of same-sex marriages, but Netanyahu has said that that is something that will continue. And some of them also had criminal charges, but specific laws were made to remove their charges, then strengthening the role, strengthening the powers of the police, so that in case there are protests and if protesters throw stones, the police should have power to fire up. And all these laws, they have already been changed, or new ordinances that have been passed, so that the alliance can come together and form the government. And that is why it is being said that it is the most right government of Israel till date. And we know that Israel, though it is predominantly a Jewish community, but there are also other communities, and there is this significant Arab population as well. So that is why it has, it can present multiple challenges, both within Israel, Israel's relation with USA, because presently in USA it is not the Republicans but the Democrats who are in power, and they are not in favor, and Israel has, and USA has even said that the expansion would not be permitted and we will not support that. And we also saw that recently after Abraham's Accord, it was this there was normalization of ties between Israel and UAE, then there was Bahrain also, and perhaps that is also something that might suffer. And since there is scope for Gulf nations or Arab world and Israel being at odds with each other, naturally that is going to impact our relations with the Gulf as well as Israel. Because the benefit was that you see, in West Asia, there are three poles of power. One is Iran, second is Israel, and third is Saudi. And it is not just Saudi, it is whole of Gulf. Because except for Qatar, and Qatar, except for Qatar, all other they accept the de facto leadership of Saudi Arabia. And you see, we have got good relations with all these three blocks. So previously we had to balance between these three, which is more difficult. But after Abraham's Accord, and I2U2 agreement, it had become more easy for us because Israel and the Gulf, though Saudi was not a part of it, but whatever UAE is doing, it means it has got tacit support of Saudi. So naturally now we had to balance between just two poles, that is between Iran and this pole. But if because of present expansion of settlements, this partnership unravels, then naturally that will present challenges for us. And with regard to Abraham Accord, one of the conditions of the accord was that Israel will suspend expansion of settlements in West Bank. And now the new party, they are talking about rapid expansion of settlements in the West. So perhaps Abraham Accord that might come under threat. This partnership might come under threat, so naturally our relationship might suffer with the key powers in the West. Okay. So before we go for that, I think we should briefly look at that is what it is talking about, this Judea, Samaria, these are all biblical names, that is for West. These are some of the challenges, but let me just come to here. Okay. So you see what had happened. What had happened was that previously all these regions, Lebanon, Palestine, etc., they were the part of Ottoman Empire, right? And from Indian history, it is the same. It was the Khalifa of the whole Muslim. But during World War I, Ottoman Empire was with Germany. So naturally, after the defeat, there was dismemberment of Ottoman Empire, and there was a Balfour Declaration. You must have read in world history. And this Balfour Declaration by the UK, it had said that there will be national homeland for Jewish population. And prior to that, there was Sykes-Picot Agreement between France and UK, with support of, and there was tacit support of Russia and Italy, and that had divided that which area will go to France and which area will go to the UK. So Balfour Declaration said that there will be a Jewish homeland, because the situation was such that this area that was since the beginning, from historical times, that was considered by Jews as their homeland, and very little population of Jews was residing there, and rest all of them were Arab. So, and in the rest of Europe, the situation was such that it was not only Germany under Hitler where Jews were being persecuted. If you look at Russia, then in case of Eastern Europe also, they were being persecuted. And that is why there were certain agreements, and out of that emerged the Balfour Declaration, and UK said that we are going to support this Jewish settlement in their homeland. And then it became Palestinian Mandate from 1917 to 1948, and this was under the control of UK. And slowly, as it was said under Balfour Declaration, Jews from all across the world, they started slowly and slowly they started settling here. And during the Second World War and even prior to that, when the persecution of Jews under Hitler, that started naturally the emigration from rest of Europe to the Jewish homeland, that further got intensified and there were frequent. Okay, and in 1948, independence of Israel was declared, and out of that, this the name was, yes, 1947 partition plan it was. 1947 partition plan. This was under UN mandate, and partition plan called for two-state solution, that was Israel and Palestine. But after declaration of Israel and after Israel was declared independent, USA also recognized and India had also recognized. Okay, and in the very beginning only, in 1948, there were tensions and this led to first Arab-Israel war. और ये जो पहला अरब इजराइल वॉर हुआ, यहीं से टेंशन स्टार्ट बिटवीन अरब एंड बिटवीन Israelis and Palestinians, and not just Palestinians, whole Arab world. And it was Egypt and it was Syria who always played key. ठीक है, तो इसके आगे क्या हुआ, ज्यूज ने आकर बसना स्टार्ट किया धीरे 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 धीरे, एंड देयर वेर मल्टीपल वॉर, नॉट जस्ट वन. वो कब कब हुआ, 1948 में, आई टॉक टू द फर्स्ट वन. उसके बाद था 1956, then I think 1967 it was, yes, 1967 and 1970. 48 we know, 1956 this was Suez crisis, 1967 this was Six-Day War, and 1973 this was Yom Kippur War. तो 1948 हमने देख लिया. 1956 में क्या हुआ था ना, कि जो स्वेज कनाल था, इजिप्ट ने स्वेज कनाल वाज नेशनलाइज, so naturally British were there who were handling it. They were very angry, and prior to doing that, they had blocked the routes of for Israel to move out for its trade, and so naturally Israel was also angry. And then France, UK and Israel, they came together during this Suez crisis, and whole of Sinai Peninsula, the triangular part of Egypt, जो कि एशिया के साथ, उसके ऊपर कंट्रोल किया. बाद में यूएसए वेंटेड, तो सुएज क्राइसिस खत्म हुआ. ठीक है ना. फिर जो 1967 था, दिस वाज अ प्रीएम्प्टिव वॉर बाय इजराइल, और इसमें ना ऑलमोस्ट सारे के सारे वेस्टर्न नेशन, सारे के सारे गल्फ नेशन थे, नॉट जस्ट गल्फ बल्कि अरब वर्ल्ड ऑल्सो, एंड दे कुड नॉट डिफीट. एंड 1973 योम किपुर, दिस इज अ वेरी ऑस्पिशियस डे, उस दिन इन्होंने अटैक किया था इजराइल के ऊपर, एंड वॉर वेंट लॉन्ग. बाद में सीज फायर एग्रीमेंट हो गया, और इसके बाद फिर कुछ और इंपॉर्टेंट डेट्स हैं. जैसे इसके बाद क्या हुआ, 1978 में क्या था, कैंप डेविड अकॉर्ड. ये किसके बीच में था, ये था आपके इजिप्ट एंड इजराइल. और इस कैंप डेविड अकॉर्ड के बाद क्या हुआ था कि जो सिनाई पेनिनसुला, आप मैप पर देख लेना, आई थिंक आई हैव नॉट गॉट दैट इन द मैप, ये नहीं, आई थिंक ना 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 ना, ये जो छोटा सा एक, यू विल लुक एट अ वेरी स्मॉल ट्रायंगल शेप ऑफ, जस्ट अ सेक, मैं उसे सर्च करता हूँ। एक सिनाई पेनिनसुला इमेजेस। ये जो आप छोटा सा एरिया देख रहे हो ना, यही है आपका सिनाई पेनिनसुला। दिस इज सिनाई पेनिनसुला, और ये आपका हो गया, दिस इज सुएज कनाल। तो कैंप डेविड अकॉर्ड के बाद में सिनाई पेनिनसुला, दिस वाज गिवन बैक टू इजिप्ट, एंड इन रिटर्न इजिप्ट जो था उसने रिकॉग्नाइज कर लिया इजराइल को। ठीक है, ये दिस वाज रिलेटेड टू सिनाई पेनिनसुला। उसके बाद क्या हुआ, 1978, और 1978 के बाद 1979 में ही इन दोनों के बीच में peace deal that was signed, and this Camp David Accord, this was related to this was why on the instance of US। अब उसके आगे क्या हुआ, 1979 तक हम पहुंच गए। then it was just a sec, 1993 this there was Oslo Accord। ये किसके किसके बीच में था, that was between Israel and Palestine। पैलेस्टाइन यासिर अराफात, एंड इजराइल के केस में आई थिंक इट वाज याजिक रबिन, एंड बाद में आई थिंक ही वाज किल्ड, हूएवर द प्रेसिडेंट वाज, ही वाज इन फैक्ट किल्ड। तो इसके बाद पैलेस्टाइन ने रिकॉग्नाइज किया इंडिपेंडेंट एग्जिस्टेंस, और 1993 के बाद 1994 में क्या हुआ कि जो आपका जॉर्डन है, जॉर्डन ने रिकॉग्नाइज किया। ठीक है, और उसके बाद आई थिंक 2003 में था अरब पीस, 2002 में था सऊदी लेड, देयर वाज अरब पीस इनिशिएटिव, एंड दिस पीस इनिशिएटिव सेड कि इट इज द प्री कंडीशन कि अगर सेपरेट पैलेस्टाइन का एग्जिस्टेंस है, दैट इज प्री कंडीशन फॉर अस टू रिकॉग्नाइज इजराइल। So all these nations, they have not even recognized Israel, and that is why India as a nation becomes that much Israel for him, that much important for Israel. Apart from India being a market, apart from India being a defense market for R&D, everything, because India is a democracy and India is a significant power in its own. And if India has got deeper ties with Israel, naturally that is a push for Israel. Because other nation, even Pakistan also does not recognize Israel। तो उसके बाद ये सारे का सारा हुआ ना, तो उसके बाद फिर क्या हुआ 2020 में, बिकॉज ट्रम्प रिपब्लिकन एंड हिज सन इन लॉ दैट जेरेड कुशनर, ही इज आल्सो Jew, and Republican party, they have got this special affection towards Israel। तब इन्होंने क्या साइन करवाया, अब्राहम अकॉर्ड। और अब्राहम अकॉर्ड में कौन कौन था, इजराइल, यूएई एंड बहराइन। ठीक है ना, और इसके बाद फिर यूएई का एफटीए भी हुआ। अब इसके पीछे का फैक्टर्स लेट मी उसके देखते हैं कि इफ दैट विल बी पॉसिबल टू डिस्कस और नॉट। ठीक है, और अब्राहम अकॉर्ड के बाद देयर आर अदर नेशंस दैट हैव बिकम पार्ट ऑफ अब्राहम अकॉर्ड। देखिए दिसंबर 2020 में कौन आया, मोरक्को, एंड इस समय सूडान। तो मोरक्को का कुछ डेट था, दैट डेट वाज कैंसिल्ड बाय यूएसए, एंड ऑल दीज नेशंस दे हैव कम टू द यूएसए they have started recognizing Israel only on the with the support of US. एक ना दूसरे तरीके से तभी जाकर, and this was a process towards normalization of Israel relationship with other nations in the region, because we also saw that Israeli Prime Minister, he also went to UAE. FTA has been signed between UAE and Israel. ठीक है? So this is how things have changed, and if the present government it goes for unraveling this Abraham Accord, and it goes for incessant occupation of all those territories, it's but natural that the accord will suffer and normalization of Israel's ties with other nations that will suffer, and naturally as a result, as I have explained, our geopolitical challenges will further increase. ठीक है? So I think mostly, I think the broadly I have discussed the stuff. You see, there was a lot to discuss actually, but then we have got limited time. और हाँ, और जो प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट है ना, प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट इन यूएस, ये क्या है? दे आर डेमोक्रेट, and Democrats from Obama till now, till Biden, they are not in very much favor of this hard-handed approach of it. Okay, so and that is why they this Abraham Accord किसका है दिया हुआ? ट्रम्प का. So in case something significant happens under this Abraham Accord, naturally the credit will go to Trump. So they have in fact stopped referring to this as Abraham Accord, but rather than that they talk about it as Normalization Act. तो यूएसए की अपनी अलग पॉलिटिक्स चल रही है, जैसे कि हमारे यहाँ होता है ना कि नई सरकार आई, उसने स्कीम का नाम बदल दिया, तो हम तो करते हैं अपने लोकल लेवल पर, और इनकी जो लोकल पॉलिटिक्स चलती है वो ग्लोबल चलती है. तो दैट इज व्हाई यहाँ भी एग्जैक्टली द सेम इज हैपन. ठीक है? और ये जो डेमोक्रेट्स हैं ये इतने ज्यादा क्यों अगेंस्ट रहते हैं? क्योंकि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दे आर लिबरल इन देयर अप्रोच, and among their vote bank there is a significant Muslim population from the Arab world. And apart from that, one more important aspect is that previously the Jewish lobby in USA, it was very strong, but now that Jewish lobby, it is slowly it is, there is a decline in its importance. And apart from that, the focus on human rights, that has increased. Even within Democrats flank, there are many who talk about. So naturally Democrats won't be very much comfortable a strong, a hardliner government in Israel. ठीक है? And since we have got some time, so let me discuss with you another aspect, that why Abraham Accord and why all this. You see, what happened in case of USA was that under Obama, the attempt was to remove sanctions from Iran, right? So as a result, all these Gulf nations, they were very much concerned, because they also know that if Iran becomes a normal nation, geographically, economically, militarily, as well as demography wise, it is the most significant power in the area, because it is along this whole of Persian Gulf. Technologically also, despite sanctions on it, it has got energy reserve, and moreover it has got a young population. And because of Iran's support for Houthis, then in case of Lebanon, what is that group called as? Hezbollah. They are a constant threat. So when Trump came, they saw this as a God sent opportunity, so that in case in future anything like that happens, they can have some arrangement, so that even if USA withdraws from the region, they can protect themselves against Iran. And that is why what condition did Trump bring? Trump brought the condition that normalize relation with Israel, because naturally Republicans, they are more pro. And even these Gulf nations, what they are looking at? They are looking at diversification of economy, diversification of economy, of security cooperation, focus on research and development. So on all these fronts, they also know that Israel is that partner that has got military capability, that research and development. So naturally, they went for accepting it. And UAE Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, he also said that Iran presents, what is that exact line? He said that principal threats to UAE and its allies are expansionist Iran and transnational political Islam. I think in the past I have discussed to you people about Muslim Brotherhood. If I have not, please read about that. How Muslim Brotherhood is an important irritant in fact relations between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, because Qatar has got ties with Muslim Brotherhood. How Muslim Brotherhood, in the name of democracy, it also supports all these radical groups. And from Egypt also, Muslim Brotherhood, it was found. Okay, so read something about, and when we are talking about political Islam, that means Muslim Brotherhood. And because of Muslim Brotherhood call for democracy, that democracy is again a threat for the kingdoms in Gulf. ठीक है? So that is why they went for normalization of relationship with Israel, and then very soon an FTA was signed between UAE and you see, then you will start questioning what happened to the Palestinian issue. So you see, with respect to Palestinian issue, the point is that if Palestinians or any other nations, they themselves are not concerned about Palestine, why should the Gulf nation? Because they know that present threats are quite different from what they were in ancient times or in past times. So that is why when we look at the Indian government and its stance towards normalization of relationship with Israel, Prime Minister's visit to Israel and de-hyphenation of Israel-Palestine ties, because you see, there are parties in nations who keep talking about Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. But the point is, even if we do everything for Palestine, on Kashmir, Palestine is not. On Kashmir, it is Israel that is. And moreover, will Palestine be any benefit to India? The answer is no. Except for virtue signaling, no benefit. But on the other hand, it is Israel, be it with respect to skill development, be it with respect to agriculture, water conservation, defense cooperation, security cooperation, intelligence cooperation. It is Israel that is more important. And as I have said time and again, that in case of diplomacy and in case of politics, it is pragmatism that should help us in our decision making rather than ideology. because of idealism we have suffered a lot and we must not suffer. ठीक है? So these were the factors why it happened, and now challenges. So now let us look at the note and what more. Huh? So just a sec. Huh. So you see, regarding this map, just look at the expansion. In the very beginning, 1946, when this partition plan was there, all these white dots, they were Israeli settlements, and all these green they were Palestinian. And then what happened? Partition plan 1947, all these white that was given to Israel, and these green ones they were given to Palestine. You see, naturally there is an issue. If there is one area, if suppose this is Palestine and its two regions are completely separated, it means naturally it is not one nation. In one region, someone else will call the shots, in another region, someone else will call the shots. And it was but natural that Israel is not that much foolish that it will let that both these regions they should cooperate with it. Because once both regions started cooperating, naturally Israel itself will get divided. So as a result, we see that what happened by till 1967, it is whole of Israel and this is Gaza, where it is the rule of Hamas, and this is West Bank. And yes, you see, regarding this name West Bank, this is quite interesting. Because this is West Bank. Why is it called? Because this what you are looking at, this is Dead Sea, not Death, this is Dead Sea, and this is Jordan River. And West Bank is called so. Why? Because it is on the western bank of Jordan River. And the present ruling regime in case of Israel, they also called for Greater Israel. Just a sec, let me go back. I think I have mentioned. No, it is not mentioned. Okay. So they called for Greater Israel, and that Greater Israel is something like Akhand Bharat. And where does that? What is the expansion of that Greater Israel? From Jordan River to Mediterranean. It means whole of this region is Greater Israel. So naturally, Gaza Strip as well as this West Bank, it becomes part. ठीक है? तो इस तरीके से, और उसके बाद फिर जब इजराइल ने इधर भी अपने सेटलमेंट बनाने स्टार्ट किया, एंड ऑल दिस सेटलमेंट दे आर इलीगल अंडर द इंटरनेशनल लॉ. So that has led to this is the situation of your Western Bank, because all these white portions they are Jewish settlement recognized by Israel. Okay. And here also they are trying to create some outposts so that somehow they can keep an eye on activities of Hamas in Gaza. And one important is this Golan Heights. And Golan Heights, it is a disputed area between Israel and Syria. पढ़ लेना, प्री के लिहाज से इंपॉर्टेंट हो सकता है. और ये गोलान हाइट के केस में क्या हुआ है, ये जो आप इधर वाला देख रहे हो ना, दिस हैज बीन ऑक्यूपाइड बाय इजराइल। और ये जो आप ये वाला देख रहे हो ना, दिस वन पोर्शन, यहाँ पे क्या है, दिस इज अंडर यूएन मैंडेट। यहाँ पे यूएन का सेटलमेंट है सो दैट द पीस कैन बी इंश्योर्ड। और ये क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिकॉज दिस इज एट अ हाइट, and if you are at a height, it means militarily and strategically you can keep an eye on all these areas. आप यहाँ से आप लेबनान पे भी नजर रख सकते हो, यहाँ से आप सीरिया पर भी नजर रख सकते हो, यहाँ पे आप जॉर्डन, हालांकि जॉर्डन इज अ वेरी पीसफुल नेशन सो नो नीड फॉर जॉर्डन, बट यहाँ से आप इन सारी जगहों पर नजर रख सकते हो। हाउएवर देयर आर न्यूज दैट at times there were talks of settlement between of Golan Heights between Israel and Syria, some sort of consensus so that Syria should recognize Israel. It has not done yet, but that has not materialized. ठीक है, तो ये है गोलान हाइट्स and this one is Israel, how it has expanded. ठीक है, तो अब हमें देखना है कि व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस। सबसे पहले इसके कारण चैलेंजेस क्या क्या आता है। सबसे पहले द चैलेंजेस विल बी विद रिस्पेक्ट टू यूएसए, बिकॉज यूएसए हैज बीन द मोस्ट important security partner of US of Israel, and in fact Israel is also termed as military outpost of USA in the Mediterranean. But in recent times, not only Israel is looking for diversification of its relationship, because it knows that it can no longer trust the USA. So it has gone for expanding its relationship with China as well as Russia. And it is a significant economic power and mainly a military power in its own. So naturally, when there are democrats, relationship might suffer. Then Abraham Accord, that might suffer. Okay, and that is why it is clearly mentioned that it can lead to internal tension within Israel and renewed conflicts with Palestine. क्योंकि आप जाओगे तो नेचुरली टेंशन बढ़ने ही बढ़ने हैं. इफ यू गो फॉर एक्सपेंडिंग योर सेटलमेंट्स देयर विल बी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. देन hamper relationship with USA, because USA has clearly said that it opposes the settlements and their expansion in the West Bank, and it can unravel Abraham Accord, जो कि मैंने आप सबको एक्सप्लेन कर दिया है, and normalization of relationship with Arabs, and threat to I2U2, क्योंकि I2U2 में इंडिया भी है, इंडिया, यूएसए, यूएई एंड इजराइल. So if the relationship and Abraham Accord itself suffers, तो एज अ रिजल्ट उसमें दिक्कत क्या पड़ेगी कि I2U2 कैन ऑल्सो सफर, एंड वी आर ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट I2U2 एज अ काउंटर अगेंस्ट चाइनीज डिजाइन, सो दैट अभी सिक्योरिटी कोऑपरेशन है यूएसए. तो इन केस यूएसए स्टेप बैक्स फ्रॉम द गल्फ, naturally it is Israel and it is India that will fulfill that gap. So if I2U2 suffers, naturally it is China and Russia who will be benefiting out of emergence, threat to I2U2 and emergence of a new economic and security order, क्योंकि economic order के बारे में भी you know, and then security order जो कि मैंने आपसे challenges for India, weakening of I2U2 already explained, and increased tensions between Israel and Gulf states can complicate diplomatic balancing in the region, already I have explained, and instability in the region, किसी भी तरह की instability is a threat. ठीक है, तो ये था इजराइल का. आई नो इजराइल पैलेस्टाइन के केस में देयर कैन बी मेनी डाउट, एंड इवन आई नो दैट these things could have been discussed in greater detail, but as I have said that there are certain limits. Okay, so whenever or whatever classes I take, or perhaps in case of interview classes, I shall be discussing it in greater detail. Okay, so now, and we have got this USA Defense Act. It is nothing more than NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. You all must be knowing about it when India was termed as major defense partner. So, and yes, और यहाँ पे आप ये किस लिहाज से इंपॉर्टेंट बन जाता है, ये बन जाता है इंडिया यूएसए रिलेशनशिप के लिहाज से एंड यूएसए कमिटमेंट टू द ईस्ट एशिया या फिर इंडो, because it specific says that it authorizes increased security cooperation with Taiwan. So ultimately USA is committing, so new defense act underscores USA commitment towards Taiwan by calling for increased security cooperation with Taiwan, and it requires expanded cooperation with India on emerging defense technologies, readiness and logistics. तो यहां से क्या पॉइंट बनता है, यहां से पॉइंट बनता है एवेन्यूज फॉर कोऑपरेशन. तो क्या क्या एवेन्यूज हो सकते, व्हाट कैन बी द एवेन्यूज फॉर कोऑपरेशन, देन यू कैन रेफर दैट द न्यू डिफेंस एक्ट कॉल्ड मतलब कॉल्स फॉर expanded cooperation between India and USA on emerging technologies, readiness and logistics. So this also shows, and this is important, the act has come at a time when on Ukraine crisis India and USA are at odds. But despite being at odds, it is calling for increased cooperation in terms of defense technology. So it means somewhere there is an understanding that India and USA are natural partners, and both these nations, they can negotiate beyond the contemporary or emerging conflicts or emerging difference of opinion over specific subjects or specific topics. तो ये मेन रीजन था जिसके कारण कि मैंने ये आपको बताया है, क्योंकि अगर ताइवान से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन आता है, अगर इंडिया यूएसए से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन आता है, अगर इंडो पैसिफिक से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन आता है, अगर चाइना से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन आता है, उन सब में दिस कैन बी एन इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. और सिर्फ वही एक पॉइंट था जिसके कारण आई मेनली, और उसके अलावा क्या था, और उसके आगे ताइवान वाले में फर्दर पॉइंट विल बी सिक्योरिटी असिस्टेंस एंड फास्ट ट्रैक्ड वेपन प्रोक्योरमेंट फॉर ताइवान, उसके लिए स्पेसिफिक $10 बिलियन के बजट का प्रोविजन है. तो दिस शोज यूएसए कमिटमेंट टुवर्ड्स द रीजन एंड स्ट्रेंथनिंग ताइवान्स डिफेंस कैपेबिलिटीज. वही है, यूएसए ने ताइवान ने वेलकम किया है एंड चाइना ने उसे रिजेक्ट किया है, एंड चाइना इज क्रिटिसाइज्ड दैट this talk goes against the peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. So going forward, Indo-Pacific is going to remain the key. क्यों? ताइवान से रिलेटेड यूएसए का नया डिफेंस एक्ट है, जापान का जो न्यू सिक्योरिटी स्ट्रेटजी है, बिकॉज ऑफ ऑल दिस फैक्टर्स, इंडिया है, ऑकस है, ऑल दिस फैक्टर्स के कारण वी नीड टू कीप एन आई ऑन इंडो पैसिफिक. और वैसे भी दैट विल वी विल डिस्कस मोर ब्रॉडली सो दैट ऑप्शनल के स्टूडेंट्स हो या फिर जीएस के स्टूडेंट्स हो, दे शुड नॉट हैव एनी इश्यूज विद रिस्पेक्ट टू दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक. ओके, नाउ आई हैव गॉट 2 क्वेश्चंस फॉर यू पीपल. ओके, व्हाट आर द की डिटर्मिनेंट्स ऑफ इंडिया यूएस रिलेशंस? आई डोंट थिंक इसमें आपको किसी भी तरह की कोई दिक्कत होनी चाहिए. इंट्रोडक्शन इंडिया यूएस रिलेशंस, उसके आगे की डिटर्मिनेंट्स हम लिख देंगे. एंड हाउ डज द न्यू डिफेंस एक्ट स्ट्रेंथन इंडो यूएस रिलेशंस, या फिर रिलेशन की जगह ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा यू टर्म इट पार्टनरशिप, क्योंकि लैंग्वेज के लिहाज से जस्ट आई एम सेइंग हाउ डज दिस स्ट्रेंथन इंडो यूएस पार्टनर. तो जो मैंने सारे का सारा आर्गुमेंट दिया है यू कैन एक्चुअली मेंशन, ठीक है. एंड उसके अलावा सेकंड क्या है, न्यू गवर्नमेंट इजराइल में प्रेजेंट अ सिग्निफिकेंट चैलेंज फॉर पीस इनिशिएटिव्स इन वेस्ट एशिया. व्हाट आर द पीस इनिशिएटिव्स इन वेस्ट एशिया? अब्राहम अकॉर्ड, नॉर्मलाइजेशन ऑफ रिलेशनशिप, उसके बाद फिर फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट्स, all those are peace initiatives and that we have to discuss and enumerate recent shifts in India-Israel relations. So you see, when we talk about recent shift, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि एक साल में, because you will say कि एक साल में तो कुछ हुआ नहीं. हमें जाना पड़ेगा कहाँ पे? प्रणब मुखर्जी जब गए थे, डॉक्टर प्रणब मुखर्जी, इंडियन प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया, he had visited both Israel and Palestine. That after how many years he went? उसके बाद 2017 में इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर he had a stand alone visit that focused on de-hyphenation of ties, and in recent times we have gone for deepening of cooperation, Barak missiles and वगैरह वगैरह, सिक्योरिटी कोऑपरेशन, वाटर वगैरह वगैरह, ठीक है ना। तो इसके साथ हम खत्म कर देंगे। सो दैट्स ऑल फॉर टुडे। और उसके अलावा कोई भी डाउट हो, इधर इन द टेलीग्राम ग्रुप और अंडर द कमेंट सेक्शन, दैट्स ऑल।